So, Keenan man of the match. And again, to borrow actually from afar, Will Greenwood, Alan Quinlan was on AM this morning. Will Greenwood said that he has Keenan pretty much as the best fullback in the world at this stage. And it's funny with Keenan's performance. It was just like immaculate. But I would have said, you wouldn't come away going, geez, best of luck trying to repeat that. I feel like Keenan's like Dennis Irwin. He'll knock that eight out of 10 every week. Like that's just him ticking along.
Yeah, it is. Like that. Yeah, there was nothing really amazingly done, just super solid. It's like it's the security policy that you want in your full back. Total confidence under the high ball. Um, Coverage of the backfield. That's a really strong part of his game because Ireland are playing their wingers high too. His speed over the ground is very, very quick in covering the corners and stopping 50-22s. And yeah, just a really low error count. He's a very good passer of the ball too, which he didn't have to do a huge amount of, but he has all of the hallmarks as a very, very complete rugby player. And yeah, I hear that he's a dream to coach. He's a sponge. He's so interested in learning and developing as well. I don't know him, personally, but he comes across certainly in his interviews very level-headed and very ambitious of continuing to get better. So, he just had, without necessarily doing anything, didn't do on Van der Merwe, but yet it was very clear and evident that he was one of the two best players on the pitch. Him and Doris were the standout performers, just because they made the simple looks very, very easy, like so comfortable. Some of the high catches, even its very first catch, from the box kick, early nerves.
Yeah.
He saw himself on outside the pitch and just got his footwork, just inside the line to catch it, and then running infield and set up a ruck to get them to the edge. That's small stuff. That counts for a lot.
Yeah. So just how good is Doris then?
I'm afraid to kind of wax lyrically any more about him because he's become so good. And we were talking a bit about him in European rugby the last few weeks when you were off feeding your baby. He's been absolutely outstanding for 18 months now, and his development of his game, his running, his numbers. So I would look after every game and look at stat packs, and I don't want to get driven by numbers, but his are through the roof on everything, on key man at ruck, carries, tackles, his work rate. It's insatiable, and he has lots of key moments as well, turnovers, big collisions, great carries, scores tries. He's a player I've probably gotten most excited about in the last year. I had heard years ago from a well-known coach that has been involved with him. We were looking at all the different back rowers coming through and different names, and they were like, "This guy is going to be the best of the lot," and I think it's going to be the case. He is a brilliant, brilliant footballer.
A lot of Irish players are good games. Who else is worthy of mention? Sheehan is as liable to pop up and do great things on the right wing as he is in the scrum. You had Ringrose, ever reliable. Take your pick. A lot of Irish players seem to play very well.
I think there's the one thing about Ringrose, and I'd love to understand the license he is being given.
Yeah.
He's shooting so much at the moment, and the stats will tell you he had 4 misses, but it's not about them. And we've said this previously that he does do that a little bit, and he changes the point of where the ruck is going to be. And so by doing that, he forces the ball carrier more often than not to tuck or to duck back inside, and it breaks the integrity of their attack and whatnot.
Yes. Sort of like I'll give you a few meters to position you where I want you, kind of a
yeah,
shift.
exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, and sometimes, teams, particularly teams of structure, want to know exactly where the ruck is going to be. They're trying to get to an edge, and then all of a sudden they don't get to that edge. And so it kind of screws up the next passage of play as to where the personnel are going to be. If you're looking to get to the 5 meter channel and you only get to the 15, does it mean the forwards go around the corner then, or do they come back on the near side, which makes them very narrow. So
Yes, yeah.
just it puts a screw in their heads as to what's coming next. Now he did have a few misses. The shot on Dan Bigger, his ribs. Oh man, it was beautiful. I really enjoyed watching it, and he's got an edge to him for such a nice guy. He's got a really edgy part to his game where he now prides himself on his physicality. So I'm enjoying and intrigued in watching that as it develops to see will we see more and more of it. He does it brilliantly. Rarely does he get caught out, tragically, where someone is able to catch a ball on the outside on a bounce pass and completely does him. Even when he made a sit down read in the first half where Bigger had him on the outside, his ability to be able to react from the short runner, loses his footing and then still has a chance to bounce out and get Bigger was really, really good defending. And actually I watched it back and saw he was on the blind side defending and he worked hard and they made a good inroads with their carry and he worked around to the edge, had that short runner who again I think was Morgan, and then Bigger should have just taken it on the bounce and he probably would have done him, but Bigger thought about a pass and it allowed him a snapshot second to get back into play and take him down. But it was still a magnificent tackle. So for me, Gary Ringrose is playing brilliant stuff. Sheehan, his explosiveness, for me, I think he's got to be maybe the best hooker in the world at the moment. Malcolm Marks would have something to say about that, I'm sure, and Manembe, a few South Africans might challenge that. But his jump step that he has is undefendable. It's actually team's strategy of having their 6 in one flank and the 2 in the other only works when you've got real athletes, like the likes of Sheehan playing a hooker in the trams where they're totally comfortable. We used to have Sean Cronin years ago, where he was as fast as any back. And you're totally comfortable him being in the line with you rather than running a support play. Sheehan is a dream to watch in the open field. And you watch him even on the quick taps, when they set them up. Like it looks as though he potentially could score from a quick tap because of the acceleration on the quick tap and then the power that he has to back it up. And the thing that I like about that as well, and maybe some teams are watching Ireland as well, because Ireland or Leinster, because Leinster have had a couple of those quick tap free kicks where they've had a bit of an intricacy, you've got to respect wide and tight as well.
Yes,
so I'm interested to see how that evolves over the 16.
I know, I was going to ask you, were they keeping their powder dry or might there be a belief that those fun and games don't translate to test level? I wasn't sure.
But I think there's still scope to be able to. We saw a little bit of that power play stuff from kind of slow ruck ball from Ireland last year against Wales, where they had this little manipulative loop play where Sexton came around. I think they have creativity in the bank and they're storing it. They had too much for Wales. They knew they had them on the rack on the power game, so why not stay with that? I think with someone like France, where physically, more imposing, you probably have to think your way around that a little bit more. So I'd say we might see something on the quick tap front this weekend. It'll have a little variation.
Okay. Geez, that's some praise for Sheehan. How many best player in their position in the world awards are we handing out here to Ireland? I mean, we need to get a hold of ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. How's this one going to translate? It's a written press. I don't know necessarily about what Will Greenwood says about Keenan. I think he's in the conversation now. I think I still think we've got our number 10 is, and then I would say Porter's definitely in the conversation, for sure, and then number 8, Doris, and I'd say. Still at the moment, I'd say Josh van der Fleer. And Josh is a really weird one because he's World Player of the Year. But it feels like there's come on. People around the world, Josh van der Fleer couldn't be World Player of the Year. But yet he's still churning out these performances after getting the gong. Yeah. So, I think he's definitely in the conversation, even though he's not a conventional best player in the world type player, So I'd say right now. Listen, we were number one in the world, so 15 of them. No, I'd say four of them.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I'd say Porter, Sheehan, Doris, and Johnny, with the possibility of Keenan being there and Ringrose in that conversation, but then Lucanio Am will, again in South Africa they'll poo-poo that idea. So,
and Furlong if he was back,
and Furlong when he's back, yeah. Good, great game from Beelum though. Really good game from him. Like, you have to remember too, he's been a cameo guy. He's been 15, 20 minutes, but he's been very good. So there was kind of querying whether he was going to be as effective in the start. I thought he was really, really good.
Yeah.
And very comforting knowing that you have backup like that.
There you are. That was a snippet of Brian O'Driscoll on rugby this evening. The full 50-plus minute chat is waiting for you as ever on podcast, wherever you do get your podcast from.